everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. Happy Friday, everybody. Hope you guys are doing well. We're going to be doing live readings on the channel this evening. So if you are getting a reading, you're in the right place. Give everybody just a couple minutes to see that we have gone live. Yeah, I'm excited. We have a number of people who are currently already in the queue. So I'll give them just a couple minutes to kind of shuffle in. I appreciate your guys' patience. We had some like weird software glitches, so it took a little bit longer than usual to get everything up and running. If you're new to this and this is your first time wanting to get a reading, welcome. I'm a Western astrologer. We do the readings by donation. It is available for you to donate by scanning the QR code right here. It'll take you to my PayPal. All questions are going to be $55 US, or you can donate more if you would like. You can ask a question about a particular transit or a particular aspect in your natal chart. We just request that you please put this information in the memo box. I need to have your birth information. So time, date, city, year, location, the AM or the PM hour. Please spell out the country as well as the month if you can. And make sure you put your question in the memo for me to be able to know what to look for, how to answer what you're hoping to get insight on, and make sure that we have the right chart information. Generally, this is a much longer kind of reading period, so just letting you guys know, I'm only going to be leaving this open for maybe about 10 minutes because we have so many people who have already signed up in advance. We already have like 14 people asking questions. So we're probably going to put 10 minutes on the clock. So if you are just jumping in and you're like, I want to get a reading, I recommend making the donation now because we're only going to keep it open for a very limited time. So don't worry, Susan, I got you. I got your info. What's up, David? Hey, Lika, I got you. Tonya, I got you. And those of you guys who are level 3 members, if you guys don't know, I have memberships on my channel. If you'd like to support my work, but with the level 3 people, if you guys actually make a monthly donation, you're going to get a reading as a part of your membership, and you can choose if you want tarot or astrology. So we always take our level 3 member people first. So I do have Lika and Tonya, but is there anybody else here who is level 3? Susan, I got you too. What's up, Choose Love? Hey, Lammy Girl. Hey, Regulus, welcome. Hey, Lulu. I'm happy to answer questions for those of you guys who want to make donations. I can take a look at your chart because I want to know specifically what's going on with the rest of the chart. It really just depends on the position of your natal Saturn, Lulu, and how it's aspected and a couple different things. Just generally looking at the Saturn return, you have to see the aspects that Saturn is making and what signs it's in as well. So it really depends. Okay, let me give you guys the rundown because we do have a number of people who have already jumped in who are going to be getting readings. So outside of our level 3 members, I've got Jennifer, Tonga, Samantha, Sophia, Marcia, Cassandra, Katie, Susan, Bowen. Oh, well, cool. So if you guys want to get a reading, I recommend you do. You can scan the QR code and you can get in the queue. If you do make a donation, just let me know so I'm aware that we've got more people who are popping in. And if your name differs from your PayPal versus your YouTube name, please just let me know. All right, so I think I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start with Lika. Then we'll get Tonya and Susan. So we'll pull up Lika's chart, see what she's got going on, and her question. Because I saw she was in here way early, but now I'm not seeing your question. Lika, do you have a specific question for me? I saw it earlier and I got your email. Thanks for sending your info. I got you on file now. But please let me know. For some reason, I think maybe we pinned a comment afterwards, so now I cannot see what you said earlier. I apologize. Let me know if you have a specific question. Oh, wow. Didn't expect to be the first, but you were. You were. You and Tonya were all over it. No, just general read. Okay, cool. So Lika is a Pisces rising, and her natal sun is in Gemini, and her moon is in Sagittarius. So she's got some questions, just general. So her chart would be a chart ruled by both Neptune, that's the modern ruler, as well as Jupiter. So just some food for thought on some transits that you've got coming up here, Lika. Number one, you're going to have quite a few retrograde action things kind of going on in your 7th house. So you're going to see somewhere the 3rd week of August, you're going to be experiencing a Mercury retrograde in your 7th house of relationships, where you're going to be re-evaluating your relationships. It's interesting that Mercury will be in opposition to Saturn. You've already seen Mars in opposition to Saturn, and you will also see the Sun in opposition to Saturn, which basically means when it comes to other people's actions, their communication, and you know, their needs, there's been a lot of like you deciding what comes in and out of your relationship life. It can be coworkers, Virgo, it can be relationships, 7th house, it can be just other people in general. And it seems like there's a lot of like going back and forth, and maybe other people changing direction and how they communicate with you over this next month. And all of that is going to get checked, not just with oppositions to Saturn, but also with oppositions to Neptune, which is one of your chart rulers. So it is possible that you're like re-evaluating your relationships with other people. You might be finding like things are slowing down. I do feel like a lot of this is about your standards and being very clear about your limitations and your boundaries with other people. This is also happening in mutable signs, so it's about change. So might be with Saturn retrograde in Pisces, you're reevaluating your own needs, and that's coming into some challenging aspects with how other people communicate. You're more aware of like your psychic sensitivities as well. And obviously the reason why I bring this up is because, girl, you got a ton of Gemini in your chart. You got a ton of Sag in your chart. So Pisces and Virgo transits naturally square you, okay? So when you're in the midst of this Mercury retrograde, it's going to be coming into some hard aspects with your midheaven, where you're reevaluating the direction of where you're going with your career. And you're also going to be reevaluating things revolving around your home and your emotions. So what you're going to be experiencing is going to be some grand mutable crosses in your chart. And so when we have squares hitting the angles of the chart, there's a lot of wherever the action is going on, right? 8th, 7th house, others. It's putting a lot of pressure on the direction of where your professional life is going. It's really trying to get you to act on your emotions, and it's showing you where other people are kind of challenging you a little bit. So the next month does seem a little dynamic. I also am curious about the fact that Venus is currently going retrograde through your 7th house. So you're already reevaluating something about what relationships aren't in balance, or if you want to make a change with your daily routines, if there's a need for you to make some tweaks, especially when it comes to perhaps like even your habits, right? 6th house. And then when Venus is finished with her retrograde, she's eventually going to move into Virgo, and she's going to oppose Saturn. So to me, this feels like there can be a lot of like trial and error with other people, reevaluating what is and isn't working for you before ultimately you get to about October, and then you kind of like rip off the Band-Aid. Venus is still a very positive planet. Throughout the retrograde, you're going to see a ton of trines actually to all of your Sagittarius placements. So the name of the game is like how to become in better harmony, I think, with yourself, to have better habits, to take more action revolving around what makes you feel inspired. And you're going to find that that's actually going to lead to like more productivity. And I think you're going to feel like you're having a lot more headway when it comes to your professional life as well. So even though that retrograde is annoying, I think the trines to your 10th house and also the sextiles to Gemini really make me feel like it's about kind of getting right with things either on the home front or on like the health front, right? What's up, Marcia? Thanks, Susan. I got you. Honey, all month long, she says. Yeah. The other thing to take into consideration is because you're a Pisces rising, I do think next month's full moon is going to be pretty telling for you because you are going to have that full moon that's going to be within about 7 degrees of your ascendant. So that full moon at 7 degrees, right? It's going to square your Jupiter Uranus. It's going to square your Mars. I would just take note of the full moon at the end of the month. My recommendation is spend time with yourself, listen to your body, honor your emotions, and really create time for you to kind of get into like a Zen zone. Because it's highlighting your 1st and your 7th house, where it's showing some kind of climax between you and another person. And I'm wondering, like, are you having issues either in a relationship dynamic, or is there some issue going on with somebody at work? Because it looks like it's going to come to, you know, like a grand finale. That full moon is going to light your chart up like a Christmas tree. 7, 7, 7. 7. What is 7? 7 is relational, right? It's a Libra degree. So there is going to be a lot of you being like, in order for me to feel in better balance, I need to have better boundaries with other people. So you're going to feel like you're not as kind of like emotionally on edge. And I do think it's going to be a bit of a turning point because it is also going to come into a square with your Mars, and your Mars is now getting activated between these nodal changes. And then also something you're going to see, this is going to be closer to like September, but also when Jupiter goes retrograde. So that's going to be the beginning of September because Jupiter is also your co-ruler. So having Jupiter turn retrograde on your Mercury is also like reevaluating how you communicate with people. And it may not necessarily just be a relationship. It can be like siblings as well, or like other relatives because of the Jupiter-Mercury conjunction. So I definitely think that you're learning a lot about like making changes in your communication style. I think that's been kind of going on for a while with Uranus transit. But those all seem to be some like really kind of hot themes revolving around relationships. And like, yeah, people born in, 82, 83, 84 who have like the Saturn Pluto stuff in Libra. You guys are also getting majorly activated because the South Node is going through there. So I don't know if you're aware of that, but the South Node conjunct your Saturn right now is also bringing up lots of clearing in regards to relationship karma. In the 8th house, it's about the willingness to release and let go of other people's baggage. And the South Node's conjunct Saturn and Pluto. So it can also be a lot of like financial things or like moving through fear and learning to kind of let that go. Which also means that it's simultaneously coming into a square with Pluto, which means it's all about really kind of touching on your own personal goals and making sure that you have supportive, powerful people around you as you're going through some potential relationship changes. Like you need to have like a solid friend group that's encouraging you to keep going, to be making the choices and the decisions that are going to be best for you, basically, like in the long term. Especially because you're going to see some trines eventually to Pluto. So if you are experiencing some of that relationship challenge, you need friends that are going to be kind of giving you some solid wisdom and some guidance and helping you feel supported. Yeah, let's circle back. Let me know how that full moon goes because that's going to be one for the books, to be honest with you. That's going to be particularly interesting, and that might be the time where you start making some definitive decisions and ultimately possibly choosing yourself. Financially selfish and setting boundaries. North Node in the 2nd house. Yeah, I could definitely see that. Hopefully that's helpful, Lika. Sending you lots of good vibes because this next month is going to be super busy. Thank you for joining memberships and supporting the channel. I really appreciate it. Last call, guys. We're going to take the last call. So if you're going to jump in now. Otherwise, we're going to close. We're going to close it down. We have so many people. Okay, who else do I have? I have Tonya. She got in there early too. Hi, I'd like to use my monthly membership. General outlook for the next few weeks. I got you. There she is. Virgo rising. I have a feeling we're going to see a lot of Virgo and Pisces individuals. We're probably going to see some Leos tonight too, just given where some of the transits are kind of going. What's up, Deanna? Back in LA. How is LA? How is the weather? All right, so Tonya wants to know what's going on. So she's a Virgo rising. Her sun is in Aries and her moon is in Sagittarius, ruled by Mercury. So obviously, you know, I'm going to tell you all about how this Mercury retrograde is very personal for you. Being that you are a Virgo rising, you're ruled by Mercury. So just a heads up, Mercury is going to enter shadow on the 3rd. So you might start feeling the effects of the Mercury retrograde, even though it won't start till the 22nd. It's going to be particularly interesting because it looks like Mercury is going to turn retrograde in conjunction to your Pluto. So it will turn retrograde at 21 degrees. So your lesson here, the second half of August, is to be reflecting, reworking, rethinking everything in regards to what you personally are hoping to change, right? Pluto at 20 degrees is a Scorpio degree. So it's about letting go of fear, transmuting things, focusing on like a rebirth period. So it's going to be interesting to see that retrograde happen, and it's going to turn direct at 8 degrees. So right along your ascendant. Mercury rules obviously also Gemini, so your 10th house. So it's a lot of like, what am I in control of? What are my professional goals? You know, how am I being more direct and assertive? You know, how am I kind of in the driver's seat? And when it goes direct in conjunction to your ascendant, I would definitely say you want to watch your body. You want to be mindful of your body and how you're communicating with other people. I definitely think you're going to see that, especially because, you're going to have a full moon that's going to be right on your descendant. So similar how I was saying in the last reading that was significant for Lika. You're going to have that full moon right on your descendant. So it's kind of like the polar opposite of what I was telling her. But when you guys have outer planets transit the angles or like lunations on the angles, it's pretty significant. So make a note of August 30th. That full moon is highlighting something about you and another person and whether or not you're getting what you need from another person. Full moons can be completion periods. Okay. And at the time, I noticed also we're starting to see like planets come into opposition also with Neptune. So I could see this as a period where you're taking more time to like reevaluate your own needs, and you're taking more time to think things over, mull things over. There can be a sense of you being more self-focused or more focused on your body. Maybe there can be a sense of you reevaluating, like, what are my goals outside of my relationship with other people? You might be taking your time getting back to other people because you're going to see Mercury in opposition both to Neptune as well as Saturn. So I could definitely see you being kind of like keeping people at arm's length. And Neptune's been in opposition to Uranus for a little while here. So I do feel like maybe you're a little bit more sensitive to like other people's effect and influence on you, and whether this is people who you work with or people and their energy, right? Because Uranus can be energy. You know, it's going to be interesting because you got about 2 years that you're going to see Saturn come into your 7th house, where you're really doing a lot of relationship work this year, next year, but then it's going to start opposing your Pluto-Uranus 2024 and 2025. And my advice is like right now, start paying attention to where you're kind of getting slimed by other people's energy, as much as I hate to say that. You've got eclipses that are activating all of your Aries stuff. Now the North Node is coming into conjunction at the end of this next month with your Sun. So it tells me that you're like, oh, I need more time alone, and I'm like pondering the meaning of life, or I'm meditating more, or I need more rest, or I'm undergoing a period of, needing some kind of personal change and transformation. Retreats, spiritual practice, meditation, anything in regards to like change and transformation behind the scenes seems to be like a real focus. And I like, the North Node activating your sun because it's in preparation for your North Node return. So while the North Node is on your sun and you're really focusing on like being in almost like this like cocoon period before, the butterfly emerges later in the fall, you're also getting ready to see that you're going to be having your North Node return in the new year, followed by it hitting Saturn and Mercury and Venus. So being that you have so many planets natally in the 8th house in Aries, it's like, what can I transform, right? And you have Venus there, so transforming values and relationships. Mercury there, changing and transforming your mind and how you communicate. Saturn there, so making changes revolving around, the way that you look at change and endings and new beginnings, right? So you might want to think back to what happened about 18 years ago, the last time you had the North Node going through Aries. Because you may see some similar patterns. It's not always going to be the same because there are some outer planets in other areas, but you might want to put a pin in the like January 2025 through January 2026 period, that year, right? The 8th house is like taxes, insurance, inheritance, changes and transformation in regards to other people's assets. So there's something like that that's going to be kind of happening where you're going to go through like a similar period of change. And it's obviously a little bit more action-packed because at the same time, you've also got oppositions happening to your ascendant. So there's a lot of like, I'm transforming and so are my relationships. The 8th house can also be about intimacy and merger and like going deeper with another person. And what's interesting is this is ruled by Mars, and Mars is in Virgo. So there's a lot of like, what am I actively changing and transforming, right? What am I cutting out or releasing or letting go? And it can also be about embracing like your personal desires, your personal power, more revolving around like action and fitness, or sexuality can also be kind of like getting tuned up a little bit. And you want to watch for when Mercury comes into opposition with Saturn. That's definitely going to be a day that might be a little bit more challenging in terms of like communicating and connecting with others. So that's going to be on the 1st. And then you're also going to see the sun that will come into an opposition with Saturn as well. So that's going to be on the 27th. Those two periods do seem to represent either needing space or taking space, or somebody saying not yet, or I'm not ready, or, I can't give you what you need. And you're like, wait, what do I do? And learning not to be as affected by other people, like not negatively responding to other people's stuff. All at the same time, you've also got Saturn that's in a square to your moon, right? So you're feeling Saturn square moon square the ascendant. So that can also be bringing up for you challenges in relationships that affect you either emotionally or your home or your domestic stuff. Okay. And so really when I see like Venus retrograde in your 12th, Mercury retrograde in your 1st, planets going through your 1st house, being more self-focused and more aware of like what you can control and not trying to control what's going on out in the world, not trying to control other people. Put your blinders on. That's my recommendation for the next month. And embrace some kind of change. Because this Venus retrograde in your 12th, it's trining all your Aries stuff, And as an Aries, you're going to hear, opportunity for romance, for more fun, more creativity. Yeah, but it's 12th house, so it's behind the scenes. So it's where you're feeling inspired, or where you're doing some kind of work in a studio, or you're like vegging out watching movies, Something in regards to what you do in your alone time, right? So you might feel like writing is more, inspirational. Learning, planning trips, traveling, things like that can be coming up for you too. Yeah. Recognizing what isn't your energy. That's not my vibe. That's basically the long and short of the next month, but it'll pass. And what's nice is that you are going to see like trines for Mars in your first house to your, you know, fifth house Pluto transit, and then also Mars trine Mars, and Jupiter is on your Mars. Everything is encouraging you to evolve right now. And to me, it seems like a lot of this you're having to kind of like do it on your own terms in private, right? So like I said, think of like the butterfly that's still kind of in the cocoon phase. And perhaps what you're going to see as Venus is crossing your ascendant is you're like, okay, you know, ta-da, here I am. And a very different energy, a very different dynamic by the time you get to right around like mid-October. Hopefully that's helpful for you. And let's see, we also had, who else do we have? We had, I have so many people on here, I apologize. My PayPal likes to be possessed. Come on, there we go. We had Susan. Susan is also a member, so let's pull Susan up. And Deanna and Benjamin, we got you guys in before we closed it out, so we got you. Susan, did you have a particular question for me? Oh, I like that, Tonya. Perfect time to work on videos. Venus retrograde in your 12th. Really taking time to work on those videos too. Putting them all together, making them look nice. That's a good way to use that transit. So I'm going to take Susan, and then I've got Jennifer, Tonga, Samantha, and Sophia. You guys are all on deck. And I think actually, now that I look at this, I think you were asking me a question. Will my mother pay off my sister and change her will in Virgo status? Okay, gotcha. Interesting that you're asking about all of this, Susan. So Susan's a Leo sun, Libra rising, and her moon is in Scorpio. So she's asking a couple of questions. She's asking about family, which is 4th house. Okay, so obviously we know that the nodes square Pluto right now are pretty intense, especially for like a cardinal rising sign. Family karma, family debt, possessions, and property are a huge theme, especially look, Pluto is at 28 degrees. 28 degrees deals with houses, homes, roots, family, mother. It's a Cancer degree. So the node square Pluto just on its own is essentially saying like there's some kind of karma revolving around property, mom, and debt that's kind of coming up. In terms of things getting paid off, okay, so your siblings is the 3rd house, and the 2nd to the 3rd house is the 4th. So your siblings' money represents is represented by the 4th house if you're looking at, you know, subsequent houses. So essentially the nodes squaring are also saying like, you know, there's pressure that's being put on home or family situations for, you know, potentially relatives to get paid out. Go back to your question. There we go. Where is it? Yeah. So will your mother pay off your sister and change her will? So wills deal with Venus, okay? Because Venus is other people's money. And Venus is going retrograde, and it is in conjunct Pluto. And it's in the sign of Leo. So I'm wondering, like, have you spoken to your mom about this because you're a Leo? Have you been going back and forth with mom, trying to kind of tell her, like, okay, can you organize this or get the affairs in order? Can you make the tweaks or make the changes? I do feel like this could be like a bit of like a brawl that's brewing with the node square Pluto in regards to like what certain relatives feel like they're potentially owed. I also feel like once this square is over, then you really want to be focusing on Saturn. Okay, so Saturn is going retrograde right now in Pisces. And you are seeing that Saturn is square Saturn. So there does seem to be some kind of discrepancy about what's agreed to, what's in documents. And being that Saturn is squaring Saturn at a 4 pretty much all year long tells me that this could be something that could kind of drag out. Certainly with Venus retrograde, I mean, it's a good time if you feel like you need to kind of like talk to your mom and be the voice of reason. But I am looking at Venus square Jupiter and Uranus, and there's also like this awareness that like if certain things are not settled, it could potentially be something that either falls on your shoulders, or it could be like a legal, conflict. Because Jupiter and Uranus are in your 8th house, which means there could potentially be some drama over money and an inheritance. I kind of get the feeling that when Venus opposes Saturn, that's a time that you really want to watch. So Venus is going to come into an opposition with Saturn, and likely, you're going to have your answer sometime around early October. I would look at like the 8th, the 9th, and the 10th. By then you're starting to see Venus that's actually coming into a trine with Jupiter. So I do feel like it's something that can actually be settled, and there could be like a bit of a remedy. The thing is that I don't feel like this is something you would talk to them about though, because Venus is going to trine Jupiter at a 12. So are you trying to talk to your mom and like work with an attorney to get this worked out and not even get them involved because you just can see the writing on the wall that this could be a problem and you're wanting to remedy it before it even, turns into something? I wonder. The other thing I would take into consideration is also the fact that in the fall there is going to be an eclipse that is going to be in your 8th house, which deals with inheritance and other people's money. Whole sign. So it's going to be right here, end of October. Okay. Eclipse conjunct Jupiter, which rules siblings. That is exactly going to square your sun. And obviously part of this is happening because Pluto is still in opposition to your Venus in Cancer at 29 degrees. So for the better part of the next year, there's still potentially going to be a bit of like a standoff that's going on revolving around what you possess, what you have control over, or your mom versus other people, right? Also other issues involving like land and things like that, which I know you've been dealing with. And then we're also going to see down the road when planets come into Capricorn, there will also be a Mercury retrograde in Capricorn. So I could see you meeting with a sibling having to go over some kind of documents at the end of the year because you're going to see Mercury retrograde in conjunction to the sun, right? That can be you having to talk to a sibling. And we're going to see Mercury and Mars also coming into conjunction. So it might, some kind of document or paperwork seems like it might be really important, especially right around the 27th. So yeah, I would definitely say it's important to get the show on the road, and you can use the Venus retrograde to actually like do this. In regards to like your money involving other people though, keep in mind in 2024, Jupiter and Uranus are going to meet in April. So there is likely going to be something where there's going to be an inheritance of money, of control, of land, like something likely will happen here. Okay, this will be in April of 24. Especially because it's going to come into a trine with your Pluto. And it's going to start opposing your Jupiter. So I'm wondering, is this a situation where are you going to be like the executor on the will? Like, is it going to fall on you? I kind of get the feeling something like that's going to happen. So I would be prepared knowing that there's going to be something like that that's going to go down. And obviously, Pluto's going to keep opposing your Venus. You're going to have that still next year. Pluto will retrograde and it'll oppose one more time, and that'll be like September through November of 2024. Yeah. And so you're going to have some challenges with women, right? Pluto in opposition to Venus. It's going to be women. And also just the fact that Jupiter and Uranus are going to sextile your Venus, like the land potentially being like valuable. Yeah. And then, being that you're a Leo, the Venus retrograde for you, obviously in your sign, but I was looking at Venus going retrograde in conjunction with the sun. So that can be about a reunion with somebody who's got a really significant like Pluto signature around the 12th of August. And then Venus is going to retrograde in conjunction with Juno on the 17th. So to me, it seems like there might be some significant connection with a woman, a friend. There can be a significant connection with like a romantic partner. Venus is also going to square Jupiter. So to me, that looks like some kind of like alliance that's being formed, or like a friend group, or you're joining like a new group or association, which can be significant for relationships. Just be mindful that, you know, Mercury's going to go retrograde in your 12th. So you might start having dreams about a Virgo, or like reconnecting with somebody from the past, especially because Mars is there as well. So I definitely think there's going to be a bit of a back and forth you might have with another person. And you're going to see Mars trine Uranus and also Pluto. So some really intense connections to like relationship stuff comes up. And it'll either come up very much in dreams, like psychically, or it'll be somebody who shows up out of the blue that's wanting to reconnect that you're not anticipating hearing from. But be mindful also of the Venus-Saturn opposition, because you might kind of look at things and go like, oh, I can't really be friends with this person, or I can't keep things kind of just like loose with this person. And you might make the decision to take a step back in October. Then you're going to have an eclipse on your ascendant. Yeah, right here. So really for Libra risings, I think the Venus retrograde is a lot of like, what are my goals in relationships? Who are my friends? You know, well, how am I setting myself up? And then right when we're done with the retrograde, we have the Venus Saturn, and then the eclipse. Kind of putting yourself first in the fall. Hopefully that's helpful. Keep me updated. Good luck with the family stuff. I know that's a lot. That stuff's been going on for a long time with the Pluto square. I myself and many other Libra risings are over it. Over it. All right, we've got Jennifer. October 4th, 72. Sag rising, sun in Libra, and moon in Virgo. She says, I'm at a crossroads with my current job. I've been here over 4 years and I struggle to find anything positive about the job or my boss. I want to start my own business, but I'm fearful of the change. Can I do it? Is the time right? Let's take a look. Okay, so my mind immediately goes to the fact that being a Sag rising, Mercury is about to go retrograde in your career zone. So what an amazing time then to really show up and be like, what can I change about my career? What can I change about my outer reputation out in the world? Mercury is the mind. I don't know if you saw the video that I put out about Mercury and Virgo. I would listen to it because I talk about how this retrograde is actually very beneficial because it's giving all of us the opportunity to get some kind of insight or inspiration, or, you know, possibly even, you know, be able to make changes with our routines or our habits. So I think that with Mercury coming into a trine with Jupiter, which will be 3 times, it's extra sweet for a Sag rising. Yeah, it's going to be, you know, trining Jupiter technically in your 5th house. So it's like, how can you change your belief systems, Mercury retrograde in the 9th, revolving around what it means to be of service, to work, and also have fun and be creative. So that's really wonderful to see that particular trine. Mercury also rules like partners and relationships. So it's about reworking the way that you look at, you know, who you work for, or maybe like talking this over with like a partner or your astrologer or like a job coach, and trying to get like more assistance in regards to making this change. The retrograde itself is going to start at 21. So it's going to start right on your midheaven, and it's going to square Saturn. So having Mercury, the mind, square Saturn, which is limitation, yeah, there's fear around change, right? But I really feel like it's about overcoming that. I also feel like this Venus retrograde conjuncture natal Venus has me wondering, you know, is it possible for you to be considering like, you know, changing your belief systems, but also like, what can you learn? What new techniques can you pick up? What kind of training can you do? What kind of marketing can you do for yourself to potentially like actually go in a different direction. Now, in general terms, because Mercury rules your 10th house, you can wait, if that's really what you want to do, until the South Node comes into conjunction with your Mercury, which won't be until like the beginning of the year. You can also wait until the universe steps in and they intervene for you, and you're going to have a solar eclipse conjunct your Mercury, which I am pretty confident is probably going to be the time where you're like, time to go. So when you have a solar eclipse, which is action oriented, right? In conjunction with the ruler of your 10th house, likely you're going to be ready to cut loose and to leave. I would say mid-October, maybe through the new year. What's interesting is during this eclipse, which is ruled by Venus, you have Venus that's at the top part of your chart. So it's saying, yeah, you have some kind of change coming, but it's also something that's going to be beneficial and a way to make money. Venus conjunct your moon. I wonder if you're going to like start a business, if you're going to like join a club, if you're going to work for another company part-time, if maybe you're going to like start like a professional collaboration with like a business partner. That could be something else that could kind of come up. But I would look every single time Mercury and Jupiter are in a trine, you're going to see that there's going to be an opportunity to be more open and, you know, seeing the opportunities that are being, you know, presented to you in regards to making some career change. Technically, Virgo is the whole sign 10th house, but you have a lot of Libra in your 10th house. So I'm going to just tell you right now, like the next couple of months when we have the eclipses and then the South Node's going through your 10th house, like it's pretty much guaranteed you're going to have a career change. It's not often that I say that stuff definitively, but like, oh my goodness, look at how many planets you have in your 10th house. Pluto, Mars, Sun, Uranus. So it's funny because you have this like workaholic tendency with all those planets in the 10th house, right? Pluto, Mars, Sun, I gotta work, I gotta work, I gotta work. But it also tells me that part of this is like, you may be working with people that drive you to work too much, right? Or you can work with people that can be very demanding, Mars, Pluto, Sun. People who have a tendency to expect a lot out of you and you're overdoing it for others. All of that trines your descendant. Like you actually have the placement of somebody who would do really well, I think, being in like a business where you had clients. I don't know what it is that you do, but I think that that's something that could really be beneficial for you. And at the very least, yeah, taking a good hard look at the people that you're working with, and if you don't feel like you're in alignment with those types of people, or that you're not on the same page, or that you don't have the same kind of like morals and ethics, yeah, you're probably going to kind of cut loose. I would say that September, you know, August into September is definitely a reevaluation time. Another period could definitely be December going into January, when you're going to have a Mercury retrograde in your 2nd house. But because Mercury rules your 10th, you in theory probably could have until like the eclipse happens and the South Node is there. So that would be October through December, right? Come over to the dark side, be a realtor. Let's see, did I lose her? Is she here? The other thing that I would take into consideration is also when you have Mars go into Libra, which is also going to happen at the end of this next month. Mars is going to start coming into conjunction with your natal Mars and also your Sun, and then it's going to trine Saturn. So in my mind, like, you really could start a new job if you really wanted to, even if it was something on the side from like mid-September on, after that new moon. Or when Mars is starting to come into a trine with your natal Saturn. So like September looks actually really positive for maybe kind of like doing the busy work revolving around being able to make some changes in your career. But I would not wait for the universe to intervene in mid-October if you really know that you're already kind of like on your way out. And know that the horoscope is actually really good. I mean, come next year, your chart ruler is going to be conjunct Uranus, and it's going to be in your 6th house, which means you're either going to be working more entrepreneurially or you're going to be doing more work for yourself. And like Jupiter is going to be there as well. Like, what if I told you that having some either new job, new schedule, or doing something completely altogether is going to be very beneficial and I think very lucrative, but it's about being willing to kind of make that change, taking that jump, right? And if you wait, even if you wait until the South Node moves into Virgo, and the eclipses are going to start next year, also in Virgo. I think, no, Pisces. I take that back. It'll be Pisces, and then it'll be Virgo starting in 2025. It's pretty clear that you're going in a completely different direction. I don't know if you're watching this live or not. I wonder what you do for work. But there's definitely something new that's going to be on the way. And I would say work with your Mars return, girl. Work with Mars coming into the placement of your natal Mars. That can definitely help you set forth putting some of your goals into action. The first 2 weeks of September are just like fire. Let me know. I'm curious to see what you do, what you've been doing work-wise, because I think you would do well having clients. All right, so we've got Tonga. Let's see. Here we go. Tonga says, hey Candace, I'd like your insight on the full moon in Aquarius conjunct my natal Mercury. So let's look at that. Okay. Let's go back to this. Conjunct my natal Mercury could be used to jumpstart new endeavors in social media. I'm also experiencing a Jupiter opposite my midheaven. I'd like your advice how to gracefully support the transition from a 21-year career as a psychotherapist and movement into more heart-aligned spiritual work that includes writing books and teaching. All right. So she's a Capricorn rising, sun in Pisces, and her moon is in Gemini. Okay, so she's got questions about two things. So we're going to take a look at this full moon conjunct her Mercury. And we're also going to talk about Jupiter conjunct her IC in opposition to her midheaven. Okay, so first of all, I'm a little curious. Well, there's a couple things going on here. The North and the South Node are squaring Pluto on your ascendant. Okay, so you're kind of like going through this period of having to surrender, if that makes sense, and making some pretty significant changes to your status out in the world. Pluto on your ascendant means I am changing, I'm transforming. It's retrograde, which means you're reevaluating what your status is when it comes to your professional life. Rules your 10. And the North and the South Node are squaring it, which means you're just kind of having to breathe and like let old versions of yourself fall away, because it's almost like you're shedding skin and you're coming into something new. The full moon is conjunct your Mercury. So Mercury in the first house is very much about I think, I am, right? It's quick moving. And it's in, I would consider an exaltation in Aquarius. So it's the higher mind. It's kind of like this genius placement. And it's retrograde, so it's very introspective. I've seen a lot of really significant teachers and writers who have natal Mercury retrograde. And the way that I see planets that are retrograde is, one, they're deep and they're internal, so it's about internal reflection, but it's also looking back, okay? So it's looking at your ascendant. So as you have this full moon on your natal Mercury, yeah, it can be about what you're writing, what you're teaching, what you think, what you have to say. But Mercury rules your Placidus 8th of transformation, change, and letting go. Also research, occult, metaphysics, spirituality, in Virgo, healing. And it also is connected to your 5th house of things that you do for pleasure, for creativity, for younger people, things that can be more expressive. So I actually liken this to it being a pivotal time when it comes to you finally acknowledging or owning this new title or status that you're getting ready to kind of hold out in the world. So if it's graduating from I've done this to, you know, now I'm a writer, now I'm a teacher, I think it's about maybe considering making an announcement about that. At the same time, it's in opposition to the sun, and you have quite a few, planets moving through your 7th house of others. So it's a really strong communication period for you, talking to clients, talking to partners, even talking to younger people, right, Leo? And what I like is that it's trining your moon. All right. And it's also trining your Pluto. So air trines are about information, relaying things. It's about ideas. It's about things that are more kind of like cerebral. So when you have this full moon in your first house, which means there's something completing for you personally, or maybe you've made up your mind, or you have figured out what your business name is going to be, or your pen name, or maybe you're completing something that you have been like writing or kind of working out, it's going to trine your Pluto, which is about personal power. It's also going to trine your moon in the 5th house, which is about creativity. So possibly like whatever is kind of completing for you, or whatever, you know, kind of comes to you like mentally, or maybe you're taking notes, or maybe you're like meditating, I would write all of that stuff down. I also think that you're in an interesting period with Saturn coming retrograde into conjunction with your sun. You know, your chart is ruled by Saturn being a Capricorn rising. So Saturn transits have a pretty significant impact on you. And the sun for you is definitely going to be about your career. It's going to be how you're identifying in the world. You know, Saturn transits, especially on the sun, is like how you are aligning yourself with certain things professionally, emotionally, spiritually, right? It's Pisces. And it's challenging because you have Leo intercepted in your 7th house, which basically means when you have transits over the sun, you're like, wait, who am I without identifying with other people? So especially, you know, if you've been in a business where, you know, you've been a therapist to other people for so long, so much of your identity is like those one-on-one relationships, which you work on a regular basis, and like you guide other people. And I think a lot of what's going on is with Saturn on your sun, it's both like a power up period where you're investing more in yourself and also in your own talents, but you're also having to create these boundaries and go like, no, I'm kind of redefining who I am outside of having like a practice where I'm having to relate to like one person specifically. So I like that, especially it being at a 1. On the perspective also of Jupiter, you know, in opposition to your midheaven. First of all, the angles in a chart, like I've said, are so important. I mean, I've seen some really big life things happen for clients when they have, you know, outer planets going through the angles of the chart. So you're already, you know, kind of still dancing with this Pluto transit. And now you have Jupiter, which is a beneficial planet. It does deal with growth. It deals with abundance. It deals with knowledge. Coming into conjunction with your IC, okay? So this is expanding your home life, your intuition, your inner world. Jupiter rules your Placidus 2nd house of possessions. And 4th house transit, it could mean you going, I want to spend more time at home. I want to invest more in designing my home or making it comfortable. I want to garden, Taurus. I want to be publishing from home, right? Jupiter. There can also be a sense of you focusing more on like what you're possessing on the home front. That's one way to look at it. From whole side perspective, which I have to think about here, this would be your 3rd house. So it would basically be saying, because Jupiter rules your 3rd house, you're trying to focus on writing and you're doing it creatively, or creating blogs or online networks. And trying to like make money in that way. So obviously maybe you're going to be designating more time at home to be able to do some of this work, right? So while Jupiter is expanding everything in regards to your home base and your emotions and your family and your intuition, it's in opposition to your midheaven, which means that it's showing you where you benefit by really building out the home space and expanding that. And it's only when you have like those floorboards of your house set solidly that you can really project yourself into the 10th house of career, right? Now, Mars rules your 10th house, and you do have the North and South node that are going to be coming into a square with your Mars, which means it's putting the pressure on you to take action when it comes to your career. And maybe you're feeling like you need more time to rest, meditate, reflect, like kind of be by yourself to do some of this work. And I think that oppositions, you know, to the midheaven represent like what we want, what we're hoping to achieve. So while Jupiter in the 4th is having faith and following your intuition, it's to better guide changing and transforming something about your career. And then we've got Pluto square the nodes, changing your career. We've got the nodes square Mars, traditional ruler of your 10th house, changing your career. All roads kind of lead to that. And then I think as Saturn is fully going into Pisces in your 2nd house the next 2 years, and it's like conjuncting your Jupiter and your Venus, it's like for you, you're going to be like, okay, I know I will have made it when I'm making money teaching these things, when I'm selling these books, when people are actually like, you know, buying the things that I have to say or the things that I'm putting out into the world. I would really recommend a lot of meditation right now with Venus in conjunction to Neptune, right? Because Venus is your traditional whole sign 10th house, but right now it's dealing with publishing. So maybe you'll kind of entertain the idea of working with like a female publishing agent, or maybe you'll teach some classes, or maybe you consider, you know, publishing with an international publisher. Something like that might start coming up, especially as Saturn is kind of getting closer to your Jupiter and your Venus over the next 2 years. And sometimes there's longing for more professional development when we see planets cross the 4th house, you know, the IC. And I would just say, like, take your time. Taurus is about enjoying the process. It's not about rushing things. And be making sure that you're also doing a lot of work revolving around the domestic, the home, and the family zone. So that way, you know, you're really kind of reaping all of the benefits of some of this Taurus stuff, because it's also going to sextile all your Pisces. Right? So the more that you're getting creative and getting comfortable, the more you can actually kind of produce. Hopefully that's helpful for you and giving you some direction in navigating that. But I really feel like doing as much as you can close to work and being comfortable is what's going to definitely make this happen. And look forward to Jupiter coming into a trine with your Mars next year. That's the other thing. When Jupiter and Uranus come together, they trine your Mars, and you might realize that you can just do so much from home, believe it or not. I've got Samantha, Sophia, Marcia, and then Cassandra. You guys are all on deck. Let's pull up Samantha. Samantha is 9/26/85, and she's a Cancer rising and Sun in Libra, Moon in Pisces. Questions revolving around money, career. All right, let's do it. Of course you would be asking this question right now. All right, so money is going to relate to the Sun, or Leo, 2nd house. This is your possessions, other people's money, what they owe you, taxes, spousal income, inheritance, bonuses, investments. This is 8th house. So you have a lot of stuff going on here right now. Let's kind of start with the outer transits, and then we'll work our way in, because there are some things that are kind of taking a little bit longer for you to work through. For starters, Saturn is still transiting your 8th house, where there's a lot of dealing with karma revolving around what people will or will not give you, whether that's bonuses, support, you know, assistance with being able to make changes when it comes to your finances, with debt, things like that. And Saturn, as it goes through this house, can show us where people can help us or where people are actually blocking us. And this year, you have been dealing with Saturn on top of your moon, which feels a little emotionally heavy. The moon rules your chart, so you have Saturn transiting your chart ruler, which means you're dealing with karma revolving around maybe property, home, taxes, mother-related things, family-related things, and whether or not you're getting what you need from other people, right? Saturn, moon. Now, it can mean that you're trying to focus on strengthening a bond in a relationship, or strengthening a professional bond, so that way you feel more secure. So there can be mergers that you have with other people here as well. And Saturn's going to be back and forth over your moon pretty much until the new year. So you're still working out some of that stuff in regards to money out, money in. On the other side of this, you also have Venus that is going retrograde in your second house of income. So this will be pretty much now until the beginning of September. Retrograde slow things down. So you're feeling like, okay, the money's not coming in as quickly as I would like it to. Maybe you're feeling a little strapped on cash. Maybe you're trying to figure out some creative ways to come up or drum up more money. And Venus is going to drop back into your first house, and it's going to conjunct the sun, and it's going to be right on your second house cusp, which tells me that something new is about to emerge, where there's either a sense of like reinvesting in yourself, or you're setting new intentions revolving around how you want to make money, or maybe you're going at this in a different direction, right around the 12th of August. Now then you're going to see the sun come into Virgo, and it's going to oppose Saturn. So there may be a sense of you like telling somebody straight up sometime from August 24th through the 30th, I need more. I need more support. I need a loan. I need an extension. I need you to invest in me. I need you to pay me back. I need a raise. Something like that's going on, because you're going to have a full moon in the 8th house, and it's making an opposition almost exactly to Venus in your second house and Mars in your second house. I'd be careful with like borrowing and lending, like, you know, credit and loans. This can get a little complex over the next month or so. Even in spite of some of these oppositions where you're just dealing with like delays revolving around what other people can give you, all of these planets coming into your second house, trining Jupiter and Uranus, tells me that this re-evaluation of your needs, your spending habits, your self-esteem, your worth is positively funneling energy into your 10th house, where maybe it prompts you to go, I'm looking for a new job, or I'm, you know, going to ask for an increased salary. I'm going to go and find something that's going to pay me better. And then Mercury will retrograde into your second house as well. And Mercury is going to be in several trines to Jupiter. Now, I could see some people considering like, you know, do I do some kind of training? Do I market something? Do I, you know, decide that I'm going to invest in something that might be international? Any of these things could take place. But with two retrogrades over August and September in your money zone, okay, you want to be really careful with your spending habits. And I think the positive, because there are positives here, is that Jupiter is going to trine Mercury. And that's going to give you the opportunity to possibly either renegotiate an existing salary or get a new job. So August 8th and 9th, that comes up. And then you're going to have this again on September 3rd. That's also when Venus is getting ready to go direct. And then you're going to have this one more time. And that looks like that's going to be right around the 24th of September. So those particular days, I would really be watching, because that's when you could potentially secure a new job, negotiate something, you know, have a new contract, something of that nature. And the North Node's right on your midheaven, so it's really trying to actually bring something new in for you work-wise. Be very careful with, like I said, borrowing and lending, because that's where you're going to get in some trouble here with Saturn conjunct your moon, okay? But I do think that by the time this whole period is over, because Mars is the ruler of your 10th house of career, will have reworked something or reconfigured something in regards to your worth. Jupiter will go retrograde and it'll trine your Mars, and I do think you will find yourself in a better situation work-wise. Now, with that being said, keep in mind that you are also going to see a retrograde in mid-December. So mid-December could also be another time when you're considering making a change at work. So about, let's say, the 15th, all the way until when Mars and Mercury trine Uranus. So mid-December through the end of January. So if you need to stay longer and you're waiting to give a job a little bit more time, you can give it until that period of time, especially because Capricorn, you know, that's where Mars is exalted and that's your career zone. and it's going to trine all your stuff. So a lot of activity produces growth professionally, which is also bringing in the money. And then next year, you're going to see Saturn in opposition to your Mars. So if you have had, like, if you accept like a position where they're going to, you know, there's a bonus, but it's contingent on something, Saturn in opposition to Mars tells me that you're going to have to work hard for it. There's a lot of proving yourself. But Saturn and Jupiter are going to sextile pretty much all year. So lots of really good opportunities for growth in your career. And being a Cancer rising, even next spring when you see some of the eclipses, you're going to see that's going to continue to expand that stuff as well. Just be very careful with your spending the next 2 months. That's my recommendation. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Samantha. We've got Sophia. Let's see. All right, so Sophia, 41381, and you have questions about SJ. No, I take that back. MB. There we go. Okay, so you are 41381 at 12:10 a.m. And then you're dating somebody who's born 6/11/69 at 12:22 p.m. in Chicago. So the question is, you started dating in March. How is this year going to go? So just a quick at a glance, looking at your transits. As a Capricorn rising, you know, Jupiter and Uranus going through your 4th, going into your 5th house is great for romance. Your 7th house is ruled by the moon. You want to watch the eclipses that are going to come in the fall because you're going to have an eclipse pretty close to your moon and the south node will hit your moon. So it can be a significant change to your status just in general. And then in regards to their chart, they're a Virgo rising. They've got Saturn that's going to be coming into their 7th house, which can be a time where they're reevaluating commitment and long-term relationships. That'll be more so next year. And Saturn and Neptune are kind of going to be hovering around in conjunction with the North Node. So it can feel like, okay, something divinely is happening. And it can also be about whether or not they're seeing eye to eye with a partner. They have a very complex chart. Sun in the 10th house, square Pluto, square the nodes, you know, and then you're going to see a lot of planets go through Sagittarius at the end of the year, which is going to perhaps be about some kind of change emotionally or with the family or the living situation, which is going to light this chart up. And so my interpretation with Saturn going into the 7th house, squaring that, is going to be whether or not this person's like really willing to make some significant home or lifestyle changes December through next spring to facilitate more relationship commitment. This person's got Saturn conjunct Venus in the 8th house. So that can mean that when they're committed, they're really committed, but there can be challenges with opening up. And this person does not like being told what to do. Sun in the 10th square Pluto and the nodes and Uranus. So kind of like really business-minded or focused, you know? But you're asking more about where this is going in terms of the next year. So this is the midpoint composite chart. Scorpio rising, moon in Leo, sun in Taurus. And so this is a chart ruled by Mars. And something that I would just kind of like take into consideration is next year when Jupiter and Uranus align, it's going to be on your guys' composite sun, pretty close, 22, 23 degrees, which can indicate you guys are kind of aiming, especially next spring maybe, to like talk about maybe living together, maybe getting engaged, maybe getting married. Jupiter can be about exciting new opportunities and like true love, and Uranus is about living situation, but still the conjunction to the sun makes me feel like it's like, are you guys both on the same page about making this really significant status change? You know, ask any Scorpio rising, like the Jupiter-Uranus transits in the 7th house are like, sometimes people come in and it's like great, and it's really quick, and like other times you get together with somebody really quick and then you realize like they're kind of fucking crazy. And then you're like, oh my God, what am I doing? So it really depends. This is at a 24 degrees, so it does make me question whether or not like you guys are ready to take the next step, or somebody's a little unsure and there's questioning revolving around that commitment. Pluto co-rules this chart with Mars, and you're going to see Pluto going through the 3rd house of communication, and it's in opposition to the moon, which makes me wonder if there's going to be some hesitancy or some resistance that somebody might have in terms of communicating or talking about making a change or a move. 3rd house, and change in regards to the living situation, which I can see very clearly in both of your charts. These themes are coming, right? Being a Capricorn rising, you're having eclipses that's coming into your 4th house, which means you're going to go, I want to be home. I want to be building a life with somebody. I want to kind of be doing domestic things or buying a house or whatever. And his chart, he's so used to kind of being in charge, and he's so used to kind of doing things his own way. His North Node in the 7th house means he's having to learn how to work with people and like let his guard down, which is not easy to do. So he's got his work cut out for him the next 2 years with Saturn in his 7th square all those planets. Just putting that out there. I do also think that this is a really interesting time because the South Node is coming into conjunction with your guys' composite Uranus, and Pluto is squaring, which means both parties are having to be really mindful of how they communicate and like not getting too worked up with one another, and like not allowing past relationship issues to cloud or hinder the direction of where you guys are going. And Pluto is also going to continue to keep moving, and it's going to also square Venus. This will be like more so like next year. To me, it seems like it could go one of two different ways. If you guys are willing to move and grow together and be making some changes in your lifestyle and your routines and trying to kind of set up house, I think it could work. But I'm also really conscious and aware of how difficult and challenging the Uranus-Sun transit will probably be on your guys' 7th house Sun. For all we know, it could be that you guys suddenly decide, hey, we're going to get married, which could be next spring. But that has to go hand in hand also with an awareness that you guys have to be on the same page about the life that you're ultimately trying to kind of create, right? And I don't pick sides, you know, everybody, I feel like we bring in the person that we're meant to kind of bring in to go through the lessons that we're meant to have at that time. But I have seen a lot of these Virgo risings with these Virgo stelliums, and I've personally dealt with somebody who has some of these similar aspects. And when I noticed like Neptune was opposing their 1st house stuff, there was a lot of like unawareness, like not aware that they were super hyper focused and consumed with order and structure, and like things have to be a certain way. And there was also some real issues with not wanting to let go of control, 10th house. And where they benefit with the 7th house Saturn Neptune transit is having a partner that's like cool, calm, collected, like kind of spiritually minded, you know, guiding them, like letting them kind of make the decisions, but informing them of like where you're coming from emotionally, so they are not feeling pressured. But you know, them getting a reading with an astrologer, talking to a therapist, talking to a life coach can be really helpful with some of these transits the next 2 years. So they're not alienating themselves from a partner, because that could potentially actually end up happening with some of these transits. What's also interesting is your composite Venus is very close to his Venus and his Saturn, which I think is pretty significant. I mean, that means that that could be a situation where he's like, this is a very, very significant relationship. I don't want to let this go. But we're going to see what's going to happen when Saturn comes into your 7th house. It hits 16 degrees, which is about a home or a living situation. Are you guys actually talking about moving in with each other March, April, May of 2024? It's even in his transits, like that's the inevitable next step. But when Saturn goes into the 7th house and a partner is really adamant about their needs, it's going to oppose his Pluto, which means he's not going to feel like he has as much control. And it's going to square his Sun, which means he's not going to be able to have the freedom to kind of like run and hide. So whether it's you or somebody else, somebody is going to peacefully put their foot down with him and be like, yeah, this is how it's going to go. And if he's going with it, it can be some really positive changes. And I feel like it can be about him really being able to step into learning what relationships are all about, which is inevitable because he's also coming into his nodal return. So you might want to ask him like, hey, what happened when you were like 36, 37? Did he get married that first time around? Did he have a significant relationship develop that time around? He's very reluctant to change. And I would just encourage you not to feel like you need to be the one to change him, but be the one to encourage him to actively participate in relationships and not let either his own issues with vulnerability or his focus on work get in the way of also being able to kind of build a personal life. Because it can be really, really positive. You guys can have like a real acceleration next year. Hopefully that's helpful for you. I've got Marcia. What's up, Marcia? Let me find you here. Okay, Marcia, Aquarius rising, Sun in Sag, Moon in Virgo. Marcia says, Candace, what's going on with me over the next couple of months? I've been doing the work since our private reading, but apprehensive about what might come in August, September, and October. Thanks, Sophia. I appreciate it. Good luck. Well, I mean, you're already kind of in it. You're in it. How are you doing with the Venus retrograde? Venus is going retrograde over your south node. Venus rules communication with like family, younger people, spouses. Not an easy transit with Venus retrograde square Uranus. A lot of this comes down to, where a partner is reevaluating like their needs, especially when it comes to home and what's going on with, the living situation. Because it's not just Venus crossing over the south node where you're revisiting the past, but it's also Venus trine your sun. And you're going to hear for Sagittariuses, it's like, what direction are you going? Like, what's your positivity when it comes to life? What's your vision? Where are you traveling? What are you learning? So a really great time to be getting readings, connecting with teachers, mentors, therapists, people who can kind of like help guide you to what the most important changes are for you as well. Yes, you're having Saturn retrograde in opposition to the moon, which also seems to indicate being on a completely different wavelength than another person in regards to a home or living situation, or emotionally feeling like a little scattered. Some dates that I would watch for are going to be when Venus comes back into conjunction with your south node, which is going to be the 3rd. So you're revisiting something that you've been kind of working out, maybe a relationship issue. Then Venus is going to square Uranus at a 22, and that's going to be on August 9th. So you want to think back to what was actually happening around the 1st of July, because this is coming back again. But now at a 22, it's more about like, can this work long term? Are we on the same page? It can also be about professional collaborations with a woman. Then you're going to see the Venus Cazimi at 20. That's on the 12th. And then you're going to have the new moon in Leo at 23 degrees square Uranus. So for an Aquarius rising, this is a pretty dynamic energy, right? And 7th house is inherently like me. That's what it's about. So when you're looking at your partner, that's what they're doing. And when you have the new moon squaring Uranus, it means they are resisting some kind of professional or like maybe like life status change, title change. And it means that Uranus is being challenged by a partner. If there's a lot of friction going on, like within a home relationship, new collaborations with women can be positive, especially getting that rolling before Mercury's retrograde, I think is a good move. And I was just talking about this. I was talking about it on my monthlies. You guys are going to see it on Sunday, but just how crazy that new moon is, 23 degrees square Uranus. So that's a whole month of like completely turning over the dynamic of some of your relationships, basically. Like that's what you're going to be doing. And then you're going to see Uranus turn retrograde. So I would imagine probably leading up to like the last couple days of August, you're going to start to feel the rumbles because your planetary ruler is about to turn retrograde. Saturn already is. But as Saturn's retrograding, it's opposing the moon. And I think it's also about like working out a lot of financial things with partnerships, professional or partners. You know, you going like, I want less. And somebody's like, no, I want more. And you're like, no, I want less. Saturn is still the ruler of your chart and the ruler of your north node. So there is a sense of you wanting to cut back somehow or spend less or having to spend less time on things. Evolve or die. That is how it goes. And then Venus will come back into your 7th house. So I think that relationships can go a little bit more smoothly, come about mid-September. And then Mercury is going to go direct. So mid-September is looking a little bit easier. And then the final Venus-Uranus square, it'll be at 22, around the 29th. And that'll be the focal point of a grand fixed cross. That's why this Venus retrograde is so dynamic for you, is because, you know, Venus rules your communication with home and family or partnerships, and it's like affecting everything. So if the transits with these retrogrades in your 7th house want you to rework something about your relationship and you're like, I need a break from what's going on with my relationship, let me focus on another one. That's another way to work with that energy. At least it's trining your sun. Okay, and what is the sun? Relationship. So it's like, how can I get into better relationship with people who do want to work with me, right? Who are on the same page. That can be a different way of being able to kind of work some of that stuff out. And then obviously, yeah, taking you to October. I mean, we all know what happens in October. Venus opposes Saturn. And we've got like a Venus that's not so happy. So yes, you know, the 9th, pretty much through the 11th of October is when we really want to know what's going down. And then you're going to have a solar eclipse, right? But at least it's in a sister sign. 8th house eclipses aren't necessarily easy because it does represent having to cut someone else off, south node, or some kind of support system off. But it is in your north node's in your 2nd house. And Mars is the ruler. You're going to have your Mars return. So you're like, okay, I'm cutting this loose, but I'm busy. Right, I've got work going on. Oh man. What annual perfection are you in again? You are, oh, you're in a Mercury year. So, yeah, so the retrograde is going to be even more significant for you, right? Because it's all going to be about the retrogrades. Oops, where is that? Gemini Mercury year. Okay. So 5th house creative. So a lot of like the Mercury retrograde is like, how can I make money doing something creatively? So yeah, I mean, this is the last retrograde before your birthday. So I do think that this is going to be pretty significant. I would just say maybe it's about kind of looking at some of your hobbies being like, okay, can I make something? Can I make money this way? And obviously like spiritual, esoteric, tarot. I love that. I like that for you. I feel like especially with Jupiter coming into an opposition with your Venus, it gives you the opportunity to kind of like drum up new business from home, right? I wouldn't worry about this. I feel like Aquarius risings have a lot to gain. Because it's almost like if there's going to be people who are meant to show up and partner with you, they will show up. If there's people who are meant to get cleared out, they will get cleared out. That's just the way that this is going to go. And that grand fixed cross in your chart, my goodness. I'm sure I talked to you about that, but like that's pretty prominent. Every time Venus hits about 22 to 26 degrees, it's going to do this. So it is relational. It's about bringing in the right people who can kind of help you. And yeah, I would say if you're going to be trying to drum something up, I mean, a lot of planets are retrograde this summer. A lot of planets are retrograde. So probably when you have something like Mercury, I mean, you can do it with Mercury and Virgo. You can still launch something with Mercury and Virgo and Venus direct. Something like Mercury trine Jupiter, maybe, right? You could do that. So by around the September 24th period, high, Venus in your 7th, direct, starting to trine your sun, Mercury trine Jupiter, Sun in Libra, trine the moon. I would say right around this time, better time to launch some stuff. Yeah, you got Mars that's debilitated, but it's trine your ascendant, so try to get something going right around that time. But during retrogrades, take our time, especially Venus retrograde. Take your time to get to know the people you're working with, to create, to collaborate. It's going to take time for that all to kind of come out, but not too far. About what, 2 months? So definitely start focusing on what you guys can be building and working out together. And then, yeah, launching something in the fall. Launching in September. I like it. Good luck. I want to see that. Make sure you shoot me a link. Tag me in it. I've got Cassandra, Katie, Bowen. You guys are all on deck. Let's pull up Cassandra. There we go. Cassandra is 4/23/94. Sag rising, moon in Virgo, sun in Taurus. She says, general reading, whatever stands out. All right, cool. So Jupiter's your ruler. It's about to pop into your 5th house. That's good. I like that. It's going to be good for romance, creativity. You've got Uranus that's about to hit your south node. Holy cannoli. Are you changing something about your love life? Are you changing something about your job? Does this stand out to you at all if you're here, Cassandra? So Uranus conjunct the south node is pretty significant because the south node is the past. It can represent a clearing. It can represent tapping into your past life. And it's ruled by Venus. So as Uranus is conjunct your south node, it's also very close to your Venus. So astrology is probably going to be like a big hobby of yours. There can be some changes in your creative self-expression, changes at work, and with your relationships, big time. At the same time, you also have Jupiter that's going to pop into the 5th house. Now, you'll hear as a Sag rising, changes with career, changes with your health, changes with coworkers or habits. Maybe you might make some changes in your diet. But Jupiter and Uranus are in your 5th house, which means you're going to be like, I want to party, I want to have fun, I want to be creative, I want to meet people. And I love that trine to your Neptune. So I have a feeling that you're going to probably be listening to a lot of things. Like music might be more inspirational. You might be getting into like tarot. You're doing some journaling maybe, or maybe you're really interested in like some design, right? Designing websites, maybe. Maybe it's going to be about designing or decorating the home. Maybe you're communicating and talking to people about what looks good aesthetically and bringing things together. And that's also starting to come into a trine with your moon. I like it. That seems pretty significant in my mind, especially knowing that there's some eclipses that are going to be coming here as well. So it looks like there's something on the forefront of either, you know, redecorating your home or getting into some new creative hobbies that are going to prove to be pretty fulfilling. You are approaching your Saturn's return. It got a little close there in recent months, up to about 7 degrees. So you started feeling the effects of it, but not quite yet. And your Saturn is technically in your second house of money, self-esteem, and income. I wonder if this is about you trying to figure out how to make a change in your living situation, though. Because I'm seeing eclipses in your 4th house, and I see Saturn going through what's traditionally your whole sign 4th house. Oh, there she is. Starting piano lessons. Okay, cool. Creativity, music, self-expression, performing. I like that. Wow, so you're going to have your Saturn return while you have your triple conjunction. So next year, I was looking at this, we're going to see Mercury, the Sun, and Saturn all conjunct at 9 degrees. February 27th, 2024. And Mercury represents partnerships for you. Obviously, the Sun represents changes and transformation. And Saturn is about, like, you know, commitment and longevity. So something about your Saturn return is pretty significant because it's going to be about some kind of growth, maybe of your talent, your resources, maybe of your home. I don't know. But make a note of the 27th. That's when your Saturn return is going to kind of be in full swing. And when Sun and Saturn come together, you're going to start to see the effects of it. When Saturn retrogrades back, I don't know if it's going to go back to 9 degrees. I don't think it is. You know, it'll go to 12 degrees. So pretty much, you know, February is when you're going to have that. I've been considering a career change. I have no idea what I would switch to. Well, considering Jupiter is the dispositor of your Saturn, I would look to the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction next year where, you know, you could very well be having some new thing that you're doing March on 2024 that's bringing you a new job opportunity. But I think it's going to be something that you're doing 2 of. And you're like, can I keep doing this and making money? Right? Venus rules your midheaven, and you got Venus conjunct the South Node. So there's a lot of, like, playing out old karma revolving around what you've done in previous lifetimes in regards to your career in this lifetime. And you're also going to see Saturn start coming into an opposition with your moon. So yeah, the next 2 years, there's a lot of, like, what can I do closer to home? What can I do locally? What can I do that allows me to have freedom to travel or kind of express myself? If you're going to be learning piano, that's really good with Saturn going into your 3rd house. And I wonder if it's also going to potentially branch into also you, like, writing music. That could be something else as well. Something else to take into consideration also is the fact that, you know, you have conjunctions that are going to be taking place with the North Node and your Aries planets. So even though you're a Sag rising, you're only a couple degrees away from Capricorn. If you get into the habit of listening to your horoscope, obviously Jupiter is important, but I would listen to Capricorn risings because you're going to be seeing the conjunctions in the 5th house and the eclipses in your 4th house. Like, there's a lot of similar things of what's going on with Capricorn that's going on in this chart. And the Venus retrograde right now in your 8th house is interesting because Venus is in a square with the nodes right now. So that tells me that there is, like, this turning point where you're kind of going through a personal transformation in regards to, like, how you want to make money, how you want to be seen out in the world, what your potential profession is going to be. You know, while the South Node goes through Libra in your 10th house, I'm not going to say that job changes won't work, but to me it seems like there's more focus and emphasis with, like, what's going on at home, what can I create? Like, it's not as much focus in regards to your professional life out in the world. It might be something that you're doing kind of privately. And the things that you do during your Saturn return, they matter. You know, they really do, because you might be starting things that you're going to keep going for like the next, 14 to 30 years, or you might be starting new relationships that are going to kind of be around for a long time too. And Saturn in the second house is about obviously money handling, developing self-esteem, but it can also be developing talent, right? Finding ways to be able to like make money creatively. Pisces can be connected to the arts. That can involve your hands. I would look into transit Saturn coming into the third house. And I would also look at I would learn about having your natal Saturn in the second. Because a lot of it's going to be about figuring out how to make your own resources creatively. And watch for that eclipse around the 28th of October. That is likely going to give you an opportunity to have a change at work for the better. It'll be conjunct Jupiter. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Cassandra. Let's see, we got Katie. January 973, Pisces rising, Sun in Capricorn, and your moon is in Pisces. Let's see what your question is. Oh my God, I feel like I'm losing it. Is it Neptune on my ascendant? I feel like I get download songs, synchronicities, but it's like I'm playing a game. I can't find what I need. What's happening? I've been so on edge lately. Help. Okay. Well, a couple different things. Neptune is retrograding into conjunction with your ascendant. Neptune is sound. It can be music. It can be visions. It can be your intuition. And Neptune is currently in a Gemini degree right now. So it's more about communication, synchronicities of like words and letters and numbers and like things that maybe you're picking up with your hands. I've heard a lot of like Pisces rising tell me things like, oh, I'll be dropping things that all start with the same letter, and it's like, it must be a sign, or like they look for like all these weird synchronicities that are going on. And you also have, while Neptune is, on your ascendant, it's exactly squaring your midheaven and your IC, your fourth house. Jupiter is also your secondary lord. And part of what also is going on is you have Jupiter that's in a trine right now, slightly still to your Mercury, so that can be enhancing your mental stuff. And you're also going to have Jupiter that's going to be in a trine to your Sun and your natal Jupiter. So there's almost like this waking up that's going on. And it's in a sextile to your ascendant. Neptune transits are weird, man. I mean, I remember going through some not Neptune squares, but Neptune trines, where I would be outside, and when I'd hear like the wind, I'd hear stuff. Like I'd hear like voices. It sounds crazy, but I could hear stuff all the time, and it like really freaked me out. And it wasn't until, I think it was when Neptune was in a trine to my Sun. I have Sun Mercury conjunct. Squares are a little different because things are distorted. So you're like, is this real? Is it not real? Like, what am I hearing? Something that I would recommend is writing stuff down, okay? Because it's in a Gemini degree, write it down. And you're really going to get tripped out when planets come up to these degrees. So for example, when Mars comes and it makes an opposition to Neptune, be careful and make sure that you're like hearing what other people are saying accurately. August 18th through the 24th. Obviously, you're going to have Mercury retrograde along your descendant, so you're already going to have issues with communicating with other people because other people are going to be kind of slowing down, and there's going to be a lot of distortion because of the squares in your chart. And then down the road when, Mercury and also the Sun start opposing Neptune and they start squaring all this stuff. So September 14th through the 19th. And then when Mercury comes into an opposition with Neptune, October 1st through the 4th, those are going to be high tides for being like, I'm not understanding, what are you saying? What's going on? Or you're feeling like really overwhelmed by the information you're getting from other people. And if you notice, Neptune's going to retrograde on your ascendant at a Taurus degree where you're like, okay, I usually have my shit together, but as soon as it hits other degrees, when it's like, 24, 25 degrees, it's a completely different ball game. Then it's like you going like, okay, now I'm pulling back and I have to like reevaluate what direction I'm going in. Probably when it hits 25, that's when you're rethinking what direction you're going in, especially in regards to relationships and the future of your career. And then, this is the last time Neptune's going to be conjunct your ascendant. Neptune's going to go direct at the end of the year. It'll be conjunct your ascendant one more time, like February going into March, and then it's moving on. So you're almost done with these squares. It might be helpful to just regularly be taking like salt baths, grounding your energy. Maybe work with stones because it's 26 degrees. Maybe work with stones that are associated with Pisces. Maybe get like some, fluorite. I get some fluorite. Or you can work with shells too. Abalone can be good. Mirrors can be good. Anything like that that's just going to be like deflecting other people's stuff. And it'll make sense too in Saturn conjunct your moon and Neptune's on your ascendant. You're going to be like, I know there are some people that I'm just supposed to kind of like stay away from. Not to like fearmonger, but you'll realize that some people just have like a negative impact on you energetically, and Saturn on your moon's going to have you pull back and be like, I'm going to be really particular about like who I spend time around, right? But I don't think you're crazy. I think it's because Neptune's at a Gemini degree. And thankfully when it gets back to 26, it'll be on your ascendant, but I think you're going to feel a little bit more grounded. And with Neptune transits, it's like, unfortunately, you have to kind of lean into what is kind of like otherworldly. I've had some clients tell me that they felt like they've had like some interaction with like spirits and like interdimensional beings and like weird dreams that are kind of like, like you can't tell if they're real or not, or like when you're half awake, half asleep. I've had clients that have told me that they're like having conversations with things and then they wake up and they're like, whoa, was that a dream? Might benefit you also to like maybe do some strengthening revolving around, channeling exercises can be really helpful here. Really helpful here. But with Jupiter trine, in your second house of the body, and this is also working with jewelry, working with stones, grounding yourself out can be really helpful. Let's see, did I answer all of your questions? Songs and synchronicity. Something else is, there might be something to that. Like there might be like a sense of like, do you ever like get in your car? I don't know if you have like a radio in your car. You ever like scan the radio? Maybe like scan the radio and like ask the radio a question. Sounds weird. I call it like radio oracle. My friends and I used to do this when we all like worked at a psychic shop together. We would just switch through the radio stations. We'd ask a question and then we would just like let it play, and then whatever song would come up, like the lyrics or like what they're saying, would generally correlate with what we're asking. You could do that, right? Or you could do that with like a ghost box. You could do that with shuffle on your like iPod. That could be a way for you to be able to kind of gain insight. So think of it as like shuffling a deck of tarot cards, but you're doing it with music, right? Especially because your natal Neptune is conjunct Mars. So it's going to help you give some kind of direction with like where to take action. And then obviously your natal Jupiter is conjunct your sun. I mean, come on. So it's going to help you feel like more capable of making decisions in terms of... So there you go. All the songs from 1983. Well, yeah, and you were 1983 is when the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction was taking place. Very close to your natal Neptune, by the way. Yeah, when in doubt, radio oracle is always extremely accurate, as weird as it sounds. I have Saturn conjunct Neptune, so maybe it's just me. Hopefully that's helpful. Keep me updated on what's going on with some of that stuff. When the Neptune transit's over, Saturn's going to sit on your ascendant. So there's that. And Saturn and Neptune are going to be conjunct your ascendant with the North Node, which means you have to have mastered making sense of all this like weird etheric stuff. I mean, like I keep telling people 2025 is when stuff gets really weird, because you're going to have to be able to decipher like what is real and what's not real, because you're not always going to be able to trust your eyes, right? If that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Definitely. Sleep, Pisces, secrets. All right, we've got Bowen and Deanna. Is Benjamin still here? Hey, Ben, I need your info if you are. Bowen. Bowen. Let me pull you up. Bowen says, November 3rd, 82. Advice for South Node transiting my Saturn-Pluto conjunction. Okay. Got it. Second house. Court case. My kids are trying to change their schedule to spend more time with me and less with their Aquarius rising dad. Thank you. You're the best astrologer on the internet. I'm so grateful for your channel. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. All right. So a couple things here. So let's talk about the fact that you have Saturn and Pluto in conjunction. So Saturn represents your children. I assume you have 2 of them because it's at a 27 degree. And Pluto represents your 3rd house of communication. And I think like back and forth and like maybe like school schedules and travel. So when you have Saturn and Pluto in conjunction, keep in mind, being born early in the 80s, this is like kind of like high season when out in the world it was becoming more socially acceptable for divorce, right? Late degrees of Libra. So Saturn and Pluto in conjunction is a generation that's dealing with karma revolving around the limitation, right? Exalted Saturn, so this is good. And also the downfall of like where you're giving too much to other people and where it ultimately ends up impacting you or like affecting you in a negative manner, right? So both the expansion and contraction of relationships. So having that in the 2nd house tells me that you feel maybe the burden of financial responsibility, time, having to be too overly understanding and like working with another person, also when it comes to children. The last couple of years looks like it's been a little difficult, right? Saturn square Pluto, Pluto square Pluto, and a lot of like working through some crisis with kids revolving around like what you can and cannot do time-wise or financially when it comes to your kids. So now Pluto is lodged in a T-square, which means the children, 5th house, have to go through some kind of change, transformation, or crisis and have to be challenging authority figures or potentially parents, right? 5th house can be a father figure. And you kind of probably feeling like I've done all I can do. When the South Node crosses Pluto, we clear out the gunk and the toxins in our life. So being that Pluto rules your 3rd house, it's being like, I'm not going to speak negatively about your dad, Libra. I'm not going to, argue with him. I'm not going to go back and forth on the phone or via text message and have toxic conversations, 27. And then the South Node is going to hit Saturn. So I think it's about encouraging also the kids to be like, talk about how it's affecting you. Don't talk badly about your dad. We're not doing that. And that's actually really important because I think it's also setting the stage for like teaching your kids that you can separate relationships and you can end relationships and like still need to be respectful of that person without trashing them on the way out. 2 is I would also say like you're pretty deep in this for the better part of the next like 2 months. When the South Node hits Saturn, it's also going to be about you looking at this being like, wow, do I feel good enough or not as a parent? Do I feel like I could have or I should have done more? Whether you do or you don't, you have to let that go. And I think it's about also like trusting and like allowing your children to go through the emotions and the feelings that they need to. And if they have to like have that crisis or that meltdown, they're going to do that. It's temporary. It's not going to be long. You might want to watch when like the sun comes into an opposition with Pluto, which you already have. When Mars comes into a square with Pluto, which is going to be coming obviously later this year. Part of the reason why this is so sensitive is because you had an eclipse in opposition to this in April. So I'm going to go out on a limb here, but is some of the changes going on with like the legal stuff also going to be impacting the financial side of it? North Node and eclipses in your 8th house is like, you know, if you're having a change that's going on with their schedule and that they're spending more time with you, are you having to go back and like, you know, petition for more child support, right? North Node eclipses in the 8th house and like what other people owe you when it comes to the kids. Or are you willing to take the loss and be like, I don't care, I'll take them willingly? Part of me feels inclined to tell you, you know, because Mars rules your 8th house and because you're going to see that very soon, Saturn and Neptune are going to start coming into a square with your Mars, like over the next 2 years. You may not have as much support, or you may have a much more challenging time being able to kind of prove that you need that support. He's against it and you have to pay more money. Yeah, well, I mean, when the North Node is in your 8th house, other people pay you, right? Spousal support, child support, inheritance, you know, more support from other people. Do with that what you want. But I do think that you're going to find probably when the eclipse happens in your 2nd house around mid-October. Let me show you. That's going to start the process of being like, okay, I am going to go and do this. Right? Right here. Because Venus is going to trine Mars. And delays in court cases and stuff can be the 6th house. So it may actually be something that's kind of drug out. You might try to renegotiate this up until the end of this year with him. And then probably December through, I would say, next spring. And then the eclipses is when you're actually trying to drum up more money. If that's what you feel like you need. Some people don't care. You know, some people look at it and go like, it's not worth dealing with my ex. I would rather just know that the kids have what they need. So it might be about reevaluating, you know, the standing custody order. I think about the fact that you're a Scorpio and that, you know, you are going to have Jupiter in opposition to all of your planets all year long. So something else to take into consideration is Jupiter can rule, you know, therapists, guides, but it can also be your attorney, and it's in the 9th house. It can be other people, and they're challenging you, right? Being somebody, I have Pluto in the 2nd house. I just went through the South Node transit in Scorpio. And for me, it was like, oh, look at all these like things that I hold on to that I don't need to hold on to anymore. And for me, it was like kind of acknowledging like I have to just be hands off. And that really helped me. Like I gave a lot of things away and I got rid of stuff. But for you, it's karma revolving around children and relationships. And almost like in a way, the kids might be the one last thing that connects you to that person and is still kind of like yanking your chain because of whatever didn't work out during the relationship. So now it's like still trying to get to you through the kids. So when it's a matter of detaching and being like, I am not going to continue to keep doing this, and I'm also not going to directly allow the kids to be kind of put in the middle, it's detaching from allowing that to kind of affect you. Obviously it's your kids. But I would say it's about how you're communicating, point blank. And this can be a really powerful period over the next like month that you can really break that habit. And you're so mental because you have all these planets in your 3rd house. And what you'll see is as Mars starts coming into your 3rd house in the fall, you're going to feel like you are really noticing the change in the effect, right? Mentally, and just how you're communicating and like not getting like so like worked up. Food for thought. You know, when you catch them doing it, correct it. But by the same token, a lot of it could also be using his name. Maybe you want to refer to him as like something else, right? Like have like use his initials maybe, right? That might be something that I would consider because this can be about, you know, giving the power away. You also have Pluto that's been in a square to your Mercury, which is the chart ruler. So like where there is intense power struggles that have been going on as a result of a separation, whole sign 6th. and how you think and how you communicate. And it can make you kind of like obsessive about things. So maybe it's not even using his name at all. It can almost kind of be like Beetlejuice. Satan? Okay, Satan works. Beetlejuice, Voldemort, I don't know. I mean, you know, but if you say his name so many times, he's going to show up, right? So not giving power to that. Don't give your power away to that, right? I can only imagine. I have Mercury in Scorpio too. I shudder thinking about that transit because I know it's just going to make me just be like Chucky. But yeah, I think that the key here is not giving power to the communication in the thoughts. And then what you're going to want to watch is later in the year when you have Mercury retrograde in the 4th conjunct Mars. So there's going to be something that's going to go down. That's going to be like, okay, you know, now we're really making the change at home. And so I would say give the kids about to the end of the year to adjust to whatever's being changed with the custody agreement. And if you feel like he's fighting it and, you know, the kids are better and they're more so with you, you may make the decision, you know, especially come the spring, to reevaluate what you need. March, April, May, that could be a time when you're actually making sure that you're getting what you need to better kind of take care of the kids. Especially before Saturn and Neptune square your Mars, because then it's going to be harder. Destroying my people-pleasing ways. That's the Libra, though. That's the Libra. That is the Libra. Yeah, and it's the effects that it has on you, not just financially, but self-esteem, right? So yeah, in many ways, Pluto squares can be about empowering. It doesn't always have to be scary. Hopefully that was helpful for you. Good luck, Lammy. Deanna, are you here? I don't have your info. You put your question, but I don't have your info. Can you send it to me? I'm going to take Ben, and then I'll take you, Deanna. Ben, August 12th, 1990. Let's see. Why is that not coming up? INVER. Is there another, Ben, is there like another major city or province that's closer? Because that's not coming up for some reason. Oh no, never mind. It's Southland, I'm going to assume. 10:35 p.m.? Okay, gotcha. General outlook for the transits that catch your eye or job searches. Thanks, Lammy. Deanna, if you're here, send me your info. I got you. What catches my eye? Well, Ben. It's been quite active for the Aries rising charts this month with that Pluto square. Job changes, yeah, definitely on the horizon, bud. Because Pluto is the focal point of that square. Status change, really, as well. Ruled by Saturn, and Saturn's in the 11th. So it's about reworking your goals or your networks in some way. But obviously job changes for other reasons, right? We've got your chart ruler coming into conjunction with Mercury. So Mars conjunct Mercury, which is going to trine Jupiter. August 12th. Yeah, I got you. And throughout this Mercury retrograde, we're going to see that Jupiter trine 3 times. So as Mercury comes into conjunction with your natal Mercury, it's trining Jupiter. So you're going to see that around August 9th. And that could expand and give you the opportunity for new work stuff. And then I also think when Mars is making a trine to Saturn around the 11th. Now, obviously, Mercury will retrograde in your 6th house, so it's about adjusting to a new schedule, adjusting to a new workplace, you know, potentially meeting new staff. But I'm really kind of digging Mercury trine Jupiter, and Jupiter is conjunct your Mars. Boom, boom, boom. So this is a really powerful Earth trine. So a lot of this is about maybe looking at the types of work that you could do, right? Maybe it's you know, being more so open to a different kind of schedule. Mars trine Saturn. And then maybe like when the moon, if you can look for the moon for a trigger. So like August 17th, well, actually, let me go back. So these are the days that I would look specifically. August 7th and 8th, 16th, 17th and 18th, maybe August 23rd with the opposition of the moon, and then August 26th and 27th. Those are going to be your best days that you're going to see like, oh, got a new job offer in hand, got a schedule, getting ready to work. But my goodness, Jupiter coming into conjunction with Mars is great because that's earning potential. And that's also at a 19, new partnerships and relationships. And Mercury is trining your Mars the whole time. So there's a lot of like applying to jobs or positions, interviewing and figuring out like which schedule do I like best? Which job do I like best? Right? What's going to pay me best? So then when Mercury retrogrades and it trines Jupiter again, September 3rd through the 6th, you might have an offer in hand and you have decided of what you want. And then, let's see, Sun trine Saturn maybe, natal Saturn, from September 14th on. That could be a new moon, new job, trine Saturn. Some really great transits. I really encourage you to really ask a lot of questions about the job or what you're going to potentially be, where you're going to be working, what your schedule is going to be. That's what kind of comes to mind for me. The other thing is also is that you do have Jupiter that's in a trine with your midheaven. So there's a lot of job working opportunities kind of going on here. I think the challenge, to be honest with you, is that Pluto's in opposition to your Venus and your Jupiter. Venus rules your money, Jupiter rules education and travel. So you may kind of feel like overwhelmed because you're like, there's jobs that I want, but they're in other places. Or, you know, I'm considering relocating. There's jobs that I want, but I'm not completely experienced in that area or completely trained for this thing that I want to do, right? And you might be feeling like you're connecting with people in other places. Now, Saturn rules your 10th house, and you've got Saturn that's going technically through your 11th right now. Some would say your 12th. Are you considering like doing some kind of work behind the scenes? Are you going to be doing some metaphysical work? Are you doing some social work, some artwork, some editing work, photography work? What do you do? Saturn, Neptune on the midheaven. Pluto and you haven't seen eye to eye recently. Yeah, I mean, you have Pluto kind of locked in with the nodes right now. So it's saying that your career and your status must change, but it's also putting the pressure on you to change something about your home environment, your values. It's almost in a way trying to get you out of where you've been living or out of the house, right? And you've got exalted Jupiter conjunct Venus. That's a great placement. I just feel like at some point with a placement like that, you may consider or contemplate like living in another country, you know? You may not get that for a little bit. You might start seeing something open up when Jupiter is sextiling that next year. By the time also you're in your Jupiter return in a couple years, you'll have the opportunity to do that. But a lot of it's because you have this really strong opposition between Capricorn and Cancer. I'd like to be behind the scenes, but ironically, Manufacturing, infant formula. Okay. Interesting. Jupiter, Venus. That can literally be supplements involving milk cancer. You know, but here's the thing. Manufacturing, I wonder if there's going to be somebody who's going to have an interest in like what you know in another location. I don't know if that interests you at all. Interesting that you do that with Saturn on the midheaven, because you know with Saturn in opposition to all your planets in the 4th house, you'll have several periods throughout your life where your like career will change, right? You will go through changes there. Or maybe there's a sense of being like, this is what I have to do out in the world versus like what I really like doing. Jupiter, Venus. Baking, eating, you know, intuitive work, spiritual work. Jupiter can be known for that. And what you have working in your favor is Neptune is trining. So, you know, the work that you may do behind the scenes, spiritually or creatively or whatever, the next couple of years, it can be something that can bring opportunity to make more money, right? But in terms of like work, being of service, yeah, the next like 2 months, you have a lot of really great transits that make me feel like you can do that. But it's also going to be bringing opportunities for you to be a little bit more choosy or particular with the location that you're working, right? Dairy manufacturing. Okay, got it. Infant formula. So I would imagine the Uranus conjunct your Mars transit was interesting because there was like a lot of innovations going on with that, no? And there was like a lot of things changing in the industry, which could have been good or bad. It just depends. But when Jupiter comes into conjunction with Mars, when you talk about dairy, I would assume like actually working with cows, right? Mars and Taurus in the 2nd house, like working with like livestock. You see, if you know a lot about that, you're going to have the potential of somebody who's going to be working for like a foreign company that may be interested in talking to you, wanting to pick your brain or doing consulting or like wanting to bring you on maybe to work for a foreign brand, Jupiter, Uranus on your Mars, and offering you money to potentially do that or be teaching other people about that. Supply chain issues. Supply chain issues, Ben. Supply chain issues. They're trying to manufacture formula. They're trying to make fake milk. They're trying to make fake breast milk right now too. They're trying to create that. But Mars in the 2nd house, you know, 2nd house is markets, by the way. So like farmers markets and other things too. And you would be somebody who could take some of what you know to the marketplace. You would need a partner, 19. But that's something you could do with Mars trine Saturn. Just food for thought. Especially because you have Venus conjunct Jupiter in the 4th house. Do you work more like on an industrial level, or do you know like about like farming and stuff like that? Because you have the placements of somebody who could like import and export materials. You could do that. You're very knowledgeable with these things. And it would also be cuts of meat too, Mars. Not just that. You make a really good butcher, believe it or not. I don't know if that's something that interests you, but you could. The problem is your sun is in a square. So you're like, yeah, there are these things that I'm good at, but then there's like what I want to do. And oftentimes you find that there's some conflict between like what you're good at and what could be practical versus like what the sun in Leo really wants to do. Right? It wants to have like more fun and creativity, but then sun in conjunct Saturn. What an interesting chart you have. You know, you'll find that every so many years, 7 years, like when you experience like Saturn squares or when planets go through these like, you know what, 15 to 20 degrees of the fixed signs, everything turns in your life. I was working with a company to get their international license overseas last year, so well done. Okay. So my advice to you is when Jupiter and Uranus come into conjunction with Mars, perhaps try to see if you can strike up a deal where you can partner with somebody who's a supplier and be like, I'll partner with you. Let's talk about this. I'll do the work. We build the company together. And you find somebody who can make the investment, right? And please fight back against all this fake meat, fake milk stuff. It's concerning, especially somebody who has a chart like this, who sees the value of like good conditions for animals. Right? It's a difficult square that you have. I would imagine the last 2 years has been very wild with Saturn and Uranus. Excuse me. Saturn and Uranus in squares. Saturn opposed your sun, you're on a square. And it was kind of putting a delay on some of the stuff that you wanted to do. Venus retrograde in your 5th. I mean, you can have more fun creatively right now. But in my mind, Ben, I know you know a little bit about astrology. I've seen some of your comments on the videos. When Jupiter and Uranus come into conjunction with your Mars, that's going to be a pretty big deal, my dude. A pretty big deal next spring. Because it's going to start sextiling your Venus, right? At some point, you really should get some land. Start to do your own thing. You have the same fixed square as me. Kind of, sort of, not really. But I have second house fixed placements, square stuff in my 5th, and I've got the oppositions. Mars, Pluto, you're intense. Yeah, I would say, yeah, you can bring in a job, but know that the Mercury retrograde is just to kind of help you get things organized, to get back on track with working. But you're going to be at this again when you have another Mercury retrograde at the end of the year. Right? And that's going to be more kind of going like, okay, what's going on with the industry? What direction am I going in preparation for next year? You're going to have a change anyway. Like when Pluto comes into conjunction with your North Node. Keep staying in relationship with trying to do business with other people in other countries. I think that's going to be really beneficial for you. Big time. And like an exalted Jupiter with Venus in your 4th house. Oh, get some farmland. Trust me, especially if you're in New Zealand. Get some land. That's going to be one of the best things. That's going to be one of the best investments you can have. Big time. And you'll also bring in a partner or somebody who can help you like work or develop that. Or work from home. You could do that if you want. You know? And part of your talent with your sun in the 5th house, square Mars and Pluto, is like your passion. So when you realize you can be really passionate about things that you're also good at, you'll break out of this like conflict revolving around being like, okay, there's what I like to do, and then there's making money. You can actually like make that stuff happen. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Benjamin. Good luck with the job search. I'm sure you'll be able to find something with those trines. Did we hear from Deanna? Deanna, are you there? Good, Ben. I like to hear that. Okay, just want to see, is she here? Is she here? I don't want to miss you. I always feel bad when somebody waits till the end and then they're like gone. Maybe she fell asleep. I don't blame her. Well, with that being said, if she's not here, I'll give you guys the rundown. So Sunday, astro weather will be on. We're going to talk about all about the astrology for August of 2023. If you haven't already seen my horoscopes, check them out. They're out for the month of August. You guys can also sign up for my newsletter on my website. I might be releasing some other like webinars and stuff in the fall. So if you want to be on the up and up for that, let me know. I am also thinking about maybe starting a Patreon. So let me know if that's something you'd be interested in supporting. What else? And if you guys want to book a personal reading with me, you can check out my website. Go to beyondtheveiledtarot.com. I also teach astrology. I teach tarot also, if that's something that interests you. And we will be back here on Friday of next week. We'll be doing tarot. So we're always here 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific and 8 p.m. Eastern time. Every other week we do astrology. So if you missed me, I will definitely be here in about 2 weeks. Other than that, I will let you guys go. Give me a thumbs up if you can. Like the stream before we get off the live. I would appreciate it. It definitely helps with the growth of the channel. And I hope you guys enjoy your weekend, and I will see all of you very soon. Take care.